she wasn't going to feed into a lot of the comments that are coming around, but there are people saying that she does not necessarily want to go to Dallas. Welcome to We Need to Talk Now, presented by AT&T. I'm Alicia J, and I'm here with Ashley Nicole Moss. How are you doing, Ashley?
We are back from the Final Four. We have kind of recovered from all of the... No? Okay.
No recovery. I still need some sleep. I need some downtime. I need some good food.
Yeah.
I need to lay outside for a minute and get some sun. I need all of that.
Yeah. Which is crazy because you were in Tampa in the Sunshine State, but of course you were working.
Yes.
My return from San Antonio was absolutely insane. My flight got canceled because San Antonio, I guess, was not prepared, or the airlines were not prepared for the influx of people coming in and out of the city. I had to drive 4 hours to Dallas to get a flight out of Texas to just make it home that same day so I could go to work. It was just, I'm sitting still for the month of April, so I won't be at the draft this year, but I will be doing post-draft with you, just like last year, so that is a silver lining. And we're going to be talking about the draft, previewing it, rather, in this very show. But before we do that, Alicia, housekeeping. Got to follow the socials. I know you were working hard on those socials at Final Four. I know you don't want to see a social media app for a good month.
But unfortunately, I have to look at it every day, Ashley.
Unfortunately, you do. Fortunately and unfortunately. Fortunately for all of you, because Alicia works really hard on giving you some behind-the-scenes look at all of the things going on with We Need to Talk Now. So make sure you follow everything there and make sure you're subscribed, notifications turned up, because there's some really amazing content on the YouTube page from the Final Four if you want to play catch up before we start really diving into the draft. And if you're someone who needs to listen to the pod because, like Alicia, you're catching up on your sleep, getting some sun, scan this QR code and we will pop up wherever you get your pods. We're on Spotify and we're on Apple.
Yes, we definitely are. And you want to stay connected. We had so much amazing content coming out of the women's Final Four. And I was just blessed to be a part of it, to be honest with you. I know I'm just sitting here saying I have to see the socials every day, but I do love doing this. And I love what we did at the women's Final Four. We had such a presence this year, which was amazing. And we got to talk to, some absolute legends. We have those interviews up on YouTube. So make sure that you tap in with all of those. And you have to subscribe because you're not going to get those notifications if you don't. So, thank you to everybody who has subscribed. To look at kind of like our footprint, it's really been amazing. And Ashley, I wanted to say to you too that We Need to Talk has been on for a year.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
Yeah.
Now that I'm thinking about it, I think we went live during the Final Four last year, right?
Yes. So it's been on for a year.
I was in Joshua Tree at the worst Wi-Fi in the world.
I do remember that. I do remember. But Ashley, I have something for you.
Oh my goodness. Oh no.
I should have said it right here, but I have something for you. You ready?
Yeah.
It's confetti.
Oh,
from the Final Four.
I love that. How cute. I actually got some confetti for Jacqueline when the Gators won. I was putting it in my bag and all the fans were looking at me crazy like, don't do that over here.
I was doing the same thing.
Happy 1 year anniversary.
Yes.
I love that. Wait a second. Why is the confetti not in Yukon colors?
No, it is.
Oh, it is? I thought it was orange and white.
You got the blue.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. And then orange was for Tampa.
Got it. Okay.
You got we good. We covered.
Okay. I was like, I need my confetti.
Yeah. No. You're like, hold on, wrong confetti. And that's actually happened before, so that wouldn't be bad. But Ashley, going from the women's Final Four, now we are going to be covering. I cannot believe this is happening already, but the WNBA Draft, and we're going to tell you some things that you need to know about the draft. First of all, it's coming up on Monday, April 14th at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. That's like tomorrow, basically. And there, obviously, with every draft, there is an order. And so we're just going to give you a little breakdown right now about the order. So the Dallas Wings have the number 1 pick. The Seattle Storm, they got their pick from Los Angeles. I don't know if you remember in that whole trade deal, and they have the number 2 pick. The Washington Mystics, they have a lot of picks, and we'll be talking about that a little bit later. But they got the number 3 pick from Chicago. They also have the number 4 pick, so they have back-to-back picks. The Golden State Valkyries, they had their expansion draft earlier, but in this draft, they're number 5 overall. So that will be a really interesting thing to see who they pick for their number 5 pick. Again, the Washington Mystics are at number 6, and they got the pick from Atlanta via Dallas. There's a lot of movement, a lot of movement in this draft. The number 7 overall pick is the Connecticut Sun from Phoenix via New York in that blockbuster trade that happened earlier. The number 8 pick is also the Connecticut Sun. So they have back-to-back picks, just as the Washington Mystics do. And they got that number 8 pick from Indiana. The number 9th pick goes to the Sparks, and they got that from Seattle. And then the number 10th pick is the Chicago Sky, which is very interesting. There's a lot of players that could go at that pick. Right. That would be really good for them. And they got that pick from Connecticut. The number 11th pick, Minnesota Lynx. And number 12, the Dallas Wings, again, from New York via Phoenix. So there's so much movement, and it's going to be really interesting. There's, the number 1 overall pick, obviously, and we'll get into actual players in a moment, but will be Paige Bueckers, but there's a lot of talk on if she wants to be there and what will happen after that. That's probably like one of the biggest variables, but the whole entire draft is at a new place this year. It's going to be taking place at Shed at Hudson Yards in Manhattan.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. Does that make you want to go now?
That's a New Yorker in me.
Yeah. Do you want to go now, or are you going to book the flight?
No. I'm still gonna stay put. But I do like this venue better. I found that Brooklyn, although that's my borough, that's my home, BK all day. A Monday going into Brooklyn is horrendous. And also the location is not near a lot of trains, so you couldn't even take a train. And also, the girls are dressed up, and their families are dressed up, and the fans come dressed to the 9, and you don't want to be on a train, your nice fit and stuff like that. And a lot of the times, especially the guests that are invited, maybe not so much like the fans because they're local, but the people that are invited usually are staying in the city, and that trek over the bridge in rush hour is just horrendous. This is a much easier commute. I know a few years prior, they also had it in the city, which just made it a lot easier for people to commute there. Once again, it's sold out. So this is just going to be a much better, I feel like, positioning for them. And then also it makes it easier, I feel like, for activations around the drafts. All those will be in the city as well. After parties and stuff will be in the city as well. It's just a much better location. So shout out to the W for changing that. I think this is a better fit.
Yeah, and I think this is the second year in a row in a long time that they've had fans, which is really dope. And again, it's sold out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, second year in a row it's sold out. So I love seeing that aspect of it. I mean, I've never personally been to a draft, and I want to go because I want to experience it.
You gotta get to the draft next year, Alicia. That's our goal.
That's our goal. And anyone listening, yes, I will go. So you don't even have to ask. But as a fan of basketball, it would be so amazing to see your team and who they pick, and just be in that atmosphere with everyone. And also just seeing the life of a player change, because it absolutely does in that moment. When they're drafted, it's historic.
As someone who's been to a lot of NBA drafts, those are held at such massive venues like the Barclays and stuff like that. That one thing I appreciated about the draft last year, because that's the only one for the W I've ever been to, the venue's smaller, but I feel like you really feel the intimacy of like the fan player fandom. I think that a lot of the times, the same thing with the NFL, it's such a massive venue and there's so many people that it's sometimes hard to feel that intimacy. Yes, those fans are happy when their team makes a pick and stuff like that, but this was, the fans and the players were so close because the venue was a lot more intimate that obviously I think that the venue will get bigger and bigger as the league continues to grow. But in these first few years where fans are being allowed in and they're selling out, the intimacy is kind of like a nice change from what you normally see when it comes to televised drafts and things like that. So I will say that.
Well, I look forward to a future draft where I get to experience
Yes,
that for
girl, we
sure.
getting you there. Manifestation.
Yeah, and in this particular draft too, some things of note, for people who don't know, is that there are 3 total rounds with 38 total draft picks, only 12 in the first round, 13 in the second and third rounds. And
Mm.
yeah, and this is because the Las Vegas Aces are without a first round pick after, I don't know if you guys remember this, but after it was rescinded by the WNBA for violating league rules regarding player benefits. So 8 total teams have first round draft picks. The Aces, Atlanta Dream, Indiana Fever all don't pick until the second round. And New York won't make its one and only pick until the final pick of the third round, number 38. So sorry, Ashley, totally at the end, but I think New York is pretty good. I don't know if they
I
necessarily
think we'll be
need
all
a
right.
draft
You
pick.
know,
Yeah.
we got some new players on the team. Shout out to Tasha Cloud. Shout out to Izzy. We got some people. We'll be all right. Um, but speaking of being all right, the draft's going to be super interesting this year for a multitude of reasons. You mentioned it. Paige Bueckers more than likely is going number 1, but the team that she could be potentially going number 1 too is what's raising some eyebrows. So we here at We Need to Talk Now are going to be bringing you 5 players to know ahead of time, plus some players that could be going under the radar in this year's WNBA draft. So CBS Sports right here has a mock draft that is available at cbssports.com. And in case you're unable to check out that website right now, we'll read off the top 5 picks that and where they think that they're going in this mock draft. So number 1, Paige Bueckers going to the Dallas Wings. As we know, the guard from UConn. Seattle Storm, Dominique Malonga is the name that's kind of been circulating, and specifically in this mock draft. Number 3, the Washington Mystics, and Sonia Citrone. I think I said that right. Yeah, Citrone.
Citron.
Out of Notre Dame. Our girl Kiki, USC, coming out of Washington for number 4. Washington selecting her, rather. She's coming out of USC. And this is the one that gets interesting because I've seen number 5, the Golden State Valkyries, potentially getting Haley Van Lith, but that seems to also be circulating different names as well. So I feel like, to Alicia, to your point, the number 5 pick in this year's draft is going to be super interesting because I've seen a bunch of mock drafts going in so many different directions, and it all goes around number 5. So let's first dive into, before we give some names that you should be aware of that you maybe aren't aware of, how do you think 1 through 5 may play out? Is there anybody that I just mentioned that you're like, I don't see that team selecting any of that particular player, rather?
I actually would disagree with number 5. The rest
Okay.
I would agree with, but number 5
Okay.
with Golden State, I really think, Anissa Morrow would be a great, great pick for Golden State, for a number of reasons. Number 1 is, she showed out all season long. She has shown to be a player that is gonna give you, an amazing stat line, night in and night out. She has something that is really hard to coach. As a matter of fact, I think it's almost impossible to coach, and that's heart. She doesn't play games when it comes to that. She's going to give you heart every single night. And literally, she's one of those players that, she has rebounding, she has scoring, she has an inside presence. She's solid, and every single team should be happy to have her.
Mhm.
And when you look at somebody who is expanding, they're starting in their first year, you need players like that are going to give you minutes that you know that you're going to get, and they're also going to be solid in multiple positions, really. But Golden State really needs to establish themselves in the league. And for me, when I look at the players that are up there, when I look at the players that should be in those, high positions in the draft, she should be one of them, certainly. And I think Golden State would just get a solid, amazing player out of her that they need for, to kick off their franchise.
I agree with you completely. I think that, it's an opportunity to start fresh.
She's
A
a
fresh
baller.
Yes.
She's a baller. She has heart. Her stat lines are amazing. She's one of the main reasons why LSU was in the Elite Eight. And I just think she'd be a
Absolutely.
solid player. Yeah.
Um, let's talk about there's a few players. Obviously, we're gonna save Paige Bueckers, I feel like, for last because I feel like it's a deeper conversation. But you already mentioned one. Dominique Malonga also is a player that not enough people are talking about. She might be a unicorn prospect. With the most upside in this draft outside of Paige Bueckers herself. 6'6" French national teamer, averaged 15, almost 15 and a half points per game, almost 10 and a half rebounds per game for one of the leagues in France. Rather, made 4 appearances for France at the 2024 Olympics. At 19, is one of the youngest draft prospects, giving her a tremendous upside. So again, age is on her side here. And one of the things that I found very fascinating in a lot of her comps, Victor Wembanyama, who we all know, the French phenom, and that's due to her size, her athleticism, and her perimeter skills. So anytime you can get a comp like that, I mean, that's definitely a player you want to look out for. Obviously, we have players like Hailey Van Lith and the resurgence we saw from her, particularly in this tournament this year, especially what she helped do with TCU, helped them to their first Elite Eight, averaged almost 18 points, shot a career high of 45% from the field. And she benefits really, as we have seen even in the collegiate game, Alicia, and we talked about this, being in the right system. LSU was not the right system. A lot of people wrote her off because they were unaware of the fact that the system was not right for her. She gets to TCU, right system, right coaching staff, right players, you name it. And she just completely changes the perception for the doubters, that is, of what kind of player she is and what kind of professional she can be. So definitely look out for Hailey when it comes to a team drafting her in the right system. Anybody else that kind of you feel is flying under the radar right now?
Yeah, I think that a lot of these players are, because these players obviously have contributed to their teams in so many amazing ways, and they're really amazing athletes, but not necessarily the names that we hear over and over again. They're very
Good
underserved,
point.
right? And so
Mhm.
I mean, you could go down the line, really. Cheyenne Sellers, Sanaya Rivers, you talked about Hailey Van Lith, Sarah Ashley Barker. All of these names, they are players who are just really, really good and really solid players that, when you look back at drafts and you're like, they were drafted at this,
Mhm.
that player was drafted at this. They should have been drafted way higher. And
Mhm.
I think it's going to be a lot of those type of players in this particular draft because, last year we saw a bunch of the names that we all know, the stars that, we love. And these players that are in this draft, they don't necessarily have that.
Mhm.
And they should have, if I'm being
Mhm.
completely honest. So I think that this draft is full of players that we're going to look back and be like, man, they got that player for a steal, because we're going to see the impact that they have in the overall game moving forward.
Before we get to what teams could be the biggest winners on draft night and at the end of draft night, let's talk about Paige Bueckers because, as I mentioned, every single mock draft, although there are differences with that number 5 pick, there are no differences with that number 1 pick. I think everybody knows who is going number 1. But the interesting part about that is whether or not Paige wants to go number 1 to that particular team and the reasons why. Break it down for us, Alicia.
Yeah, so Cooper has his own things that he wants to say too. He wanted to contribute a little bit there. There's been some rumors. Who knows if they're true or not? People have asked Paige, and she said, "I'm going to go where I'm supposed to go." That is I'm just summarizing that. I don't have the exact quote, but she wasn't going to feed into a lot of the comments that are coming around. But there are people saying that she does not necessarily want to go to Dallas, and there's probably a number of reasons if that is true or not. Arike has also been tweeting about having her in Dallas. And so, people are really banking on her coming and welcoming her with open arms as they should. She's definitely going to be the number one overall
For
pick.
those who are unaware, can you give us some of the reasons that you've heard as to why it may be that she doesn't want to go to Dallas? What we can talk about, rather.
Yeah, I personally haven't heard specific things. It's just as a market and as a place and an overall city, she doesn't necessarily want to go there. I don't even think it has to do, and this is just literal conjecture, but like, I don't even think it has to do with specifically the team or like the people on the team or anything of that. I just think it has to do with like location and where she really wants to build her career moving forward. And so, there have been some rumors behind the scenes that there's going to be like a huge trade that is going to happen, or there's going to be a lot of movement that happens to get her to. I mean, I've heard so many different places, one being the Valkyries. I mean, that is probably the main place that I've heard that, they want to make big moves and they really see her there. But I'm not saying that.
I will say though, Alicia, Paige Bueckers in proximity to the Golden State Warriors. We get Bueckers, Steph Curry collab. Something I don't want to strip Dallas of Paige Bueckers, but low key for you, for the city, for the just proximity of like Steph Curry and the Warriors, I personally would not be mad at it. But carry on.
Yeah. It would be huge. I think any movement in this area would be almost like unprecedented in a lot of different ways. So it'll be really interesting to see if and how that would happen. So that is the thing that I'm looking for in the draft, is like, what's going to happen either during the draft or after the draft. Like, I just feel like it could go one of two ways. Obviously, she could just get drafted to Dallas, go to Dallas, do her Dallas thing, or we're just going to see a bunch of movement that happens that we haven't seen, in a really, I can't think of a time where it was with the number one pick. So I just,
either.
It's really hard to wrap your mind around. And it's like, how is this going to happen if it happens? And that's one of the reasons why I'm popping my popcorn for the draft, is anticipation of anything that would happen in that respect.
Yeah. So again, the draft, for everyone who may have missed the beginning of the pod, is April 14th. We will be going live post the draft, just like we did last year. So we will not be speculating, but reacting in that podcast. Right now, this is just a preview of what we think could happen, what might happen, what we're hearing could happen. So make sure you, again, have your notifications turned on, because we are going to be doing a post-draft show, just like we do for all special events when it comes to women's sports. So Alicia, before we get into some of the teams that could be the biggest winners of draft night and after draft night is over, we have to talk some of the steals. And one of those steals, potentially Sarah Ashley Barker, put up 45 points, 8 rebounds, 3 steals against Maryland, solid from beyond the arc. Another potential steal is Harmony Turner. Now, Turner helped Harvard to their first NCAA tournament berth since 2007, has great vision, flashy style of game, and ranked among national leaders in points per game and steals this season, was also named MVP of the Ivy League tournament after leading Harvard to the first tourney championship. So a lot of under the radar players, like you mentioned, maybe not the names we're the most familiar with, but a whole lot of talent deep in this draft.
There is. Harmony Turner is definitely one of those players that, she went under the radar in her college career in a lot of ways. There was a little bit of talk about her, but not nearly enough. So she's definitely one of those players that you can get that is a steal for sure. And I think another person I would add is Georgia Amore from Kentucky. She has been a very solid player. They, didn't do as well as people thought in the tournament. And so she didn't necessarily get as much shine going into the draft. We've seen players like Kiki Iriafen, and she kind of upped her stock, right? Going into the tournament in so many different ways. Well, Georgia didn't necessarily get that, but she's a player that is very solid. I could see her on a lot of these teams, specifically when it comes to the Connecticut Sun. I can see her just going right in there and fitting in with their system right away, and just being really effective for Connecticut. So I can see her in a number of places, and she's definitely another player that I think you can get at a steal. But,
Yeah, love it.
all of these players, it's going to be really interesting to see where they land. But let's talk about which teams could be the biggest winners when it
Woo.
comes to this year's draft. Well, the Washington Mystics, I mean, no shade, but they need a lot. They need a lot.
They
And
got a lot of
um,
picks.
yeah, and they've hung their entire offseason on draft stock. So they hold 3 first-round picks, and they have the potential to really, really, really get some amazing players to help their franchise win. I mean, I think towards the end of last season, they kind of had an uptick towards the end, and there was some promise, but they've had a lot of movement. They have a lot of open spots. They need a lot of help. And so potentially they could draft Sonia Citron out of Notre Dame with a number 3 pick. She's a versatile player. We've talked about her that can plug and play into any lineup for sure. They also have the number 4 pick. And this is an interesting player that not a lot of people are talking about. Justa Jotite out of Lithuania. She's currently playing in France, but she's Lithuanian. She is one of the international players that could be so phenomenal for a team. She is just an amazing player on all levels. I think she could use some help in her defensive presence, but she definitely is one of those European players that I think that we could talk about in this league for years to come. And so they have the potential to pick her up. Also, number 6 pick is possibly, and we talked about her a little bit earlier, but NC State's Sanaya Rivers. Man, she is a name that we heard. Absolutely. NC State went out a little bit earlier than they thought, or what we all
Yeah,
thought as well.
yeah.
And so, kind of a player that her name could get a little bit buried in the draft based on that. But she's a pure athlete, defended 4 positions at NC State, an outstanding passer and great rebounder. Her decision making on offense needs a little bit of work, but otherwise, like, she's just a fantastic, solid player. So I could definitely see her going to the Mystics as well. Now, the Connecticut Sun, they have the
Mm,
number 7 and number 8th pick, and they could end up with someone that I talked about earlier that could pretty much go at any of these positions around here. But if she doesn't get picked up by Golden State, Anissa Morrow could be a great pickup for them as well. Cheyenne Sellers is also a name that I think the Connecticut Sun could really, really pick up and really, really use. I mean, again, they need all that they can get. And then a name that I absolutely love, not only for her play, but also for her personality, is Tahina Pau. She's amazing. I can see her fitting in with a lot of different teams. She's going to go out and give you heart every night, which is something that we talked about that is hard to find. But she could go to the Chicago Sky. That could be something. If they picked her up,
which
you
would
look
be
at,
great for them, honestly.
yeah,
Great for them. Yeah.
1000%. I mean, you look at the players that they have now. They have Camilla, they have Angel, they have a really, young team that is on the rise. And I think she'd be a great addition to that.
Yeah, I definitely think, like, to your point, that's the reason why I really like this pick potentially. Chicago's just right on that cusp, right, of hitting that next tier. We were kind of talking about this with the Fever and what they've been doing and what we saw them do last season specifically, and the amount of years it took them to get to that very point. And now they're finally starting to reap the benefits of, all of the ebbs and the flows of previous seasons. And I think the Chicago Sky are right there too on that cusp of hitting that next tier. And you want players that not only you can develop and continue to mold. And we know the Chicago Sky are a team that want to win, but also have the patience to develop young talent, which is a testament to the talent they already have. But I also think that the Chicago Sky are a team that's right on the cusp of that next tier, where they can really start winning and really start winning playoff series and really start upsetting, or at least making it difficult for some of the teams that we already expect to win. And in order to do that, you have to have culture pieces. And I agree with you completely. That's a culture piece. So it would be a great, great pick for them.
Yeah, they have a fantastic coaching staff too that knows
Yeah,
exactly what they want in players. And when you look at, winning teams that the WNBA rather has had, not only is it because their players are just stellar, but it's also because of the chemistry that they have.
absolutely.
And I can just see her really fitting in that mold in more ways than one.
Absolutely. Well, look, the draft. I know we just finished the Final Four. Now we're talking about the draft, and soon we'll be talking about the start of the WNBA season. The world of sports does not stop, and the world of women's sports does not stop. There is always something to talk about right here at We Need to Talk Now, presented by AT&T. As I mentioned, we will be doing a live reaction to the WNBA 2025 draft. So you don't want to miss that. And in order to not miss that, follow our social channels. They're right here below. Make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel. Notifications turned all the way up. And at the end of the show, scan that QR code to catch up on this episode if you need to listen or you just want to listen only on audio. Because again, April 14th, post the draft, we will be going live and reacting live to all of the moves, all of the decisions, and maybe some of the chaos. Alicia's alluded there could be some chaos on the horizon. You don't want to miss that. So
Get
we will
ready.
see you then.
See you on Monday.